Is Curtis Blaydes actually the toughest matchup right now for Tom Aspinall? We'll see. What's up, everybody? Laura Sanko here with the great Dean Thomas. He is the man of the hour. He's the man of every hour, if we're being honest, especially on this channel. He's just the man.
Well, I was going to say something that may be a little inappropriate, so I'll leave that to myself.
Skip it. It's all good. Of course, we are here talking about UFC 304 going down in Manchester, England this weekend. And this video pertains to the co-main event. We've got another video on the main event if you want to check that out. But the co-main event, we have interim champion Tom Aspinall taking on Curtis Blaydes in the heavyweight division. There's so much to talk about with this fight that doesn't even really have to do with the fight, so let's start there. We're defending an interim belt, Dean. How do we feel about that?
It feels silly to me. It feels like you create a belt because the quote unquote real champion is out.
Yeah.
I don't understand what this, why we feel as though we owe John Jones something. You know, we're talking about an organization that stripped Aljamain Sterling of his belt because he wanted to wait another couple of months before he defended it.
Yeah.
And they was like,
nope,
get out of here.
Yeah.
And then John Jones just holds on to this. He wins the belt by fighting one heavyweight fight. He wins it in a minute. And now gets to hold on to it for 2 years and not have to defend it. And yet we got a champion who I feel is the best heavyweight in the world defending his interim belt against it doesn't make sense to me.
I know.
It doesn't make sense to me. Get rid of John Jones's belt.
Remember Nico Montano? Or was that his name?
Yeah, Nico Montano.
Yeah. Or Jermaine Durandamy.
We were doesn't make sense
on the trigger with them.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Nico needed to give that belt.
No, I know. There are certainly some situations where your hand gets forced, but to your point, like it's not as if we've never stripped belts before, or nicely asked for them. Stripping sounds so violent, you know. Can we have that?
I mean, but still, I mean, when you think about, let's put it in this context. The light heavyweight belt, the belt that John Jones used to have, has been passed around like 4 different times.
Yes.
2 of the guys who had it gave it up because they knew they couldn't defend it within the time that John Jones refused to give it up.
Yep.
2 other guys gave up that other belt. It doesn't make sense to me.
Immediately also, which was incredibly honorable. I mean, the moment that Yuri Prochazka got injured, that was the part of the announcement. I'm injured. Here's your belt. I'm going to be out. I mean, it was kind of.
He still had ice on his shoulder. My man, he tore his shoulder. He didn't even go to the hospital yet. Was like, yo, y'all could have had a belt. I can't defend it. Jamal Hill too. I don't get it. I don't know why we feel this need. Listen, John Jones is the second greatest martial artist to ever grace us.
Who's first?
Demetrius Johnson.
Really?
DJ, yes, DJ. And skill for skill, DJ's the best. Skill for skill. John Jones, I put him at second.
We'll have to have that debate sometime. Not that I'm like vehemently against it, but I would need to do some more stat digging on that because
we can debate that.
Yeah.
But for the sake of argument, I'll even say he's the GOAT. For the sake of argument, he's the GOAT. But we don't have to honor his belt right now when you got guys out there that are cutting their teeth and putting themselves on the front line and deserve to call themselves the heavyweight champion of the world.
Yeah, like come back right into a title fight, of course.
Yes, for sure.
Obviously.
You can come right back to it.
Yeah.
But allow these men to walk around with the gold. They should be able to walk around with the strap. Tom Aspinall should walk around with the strap.
Tom Aspinall stays strapped.
I'm upset.
I know.
It upsets me.
Yeah. As it should. I agree with you. And I think I can only imagine what it's like to be in Tom Aspinall's shoes because, or even Curtis Blaydes' shoes right now. Like, what's this fight even mean for him? How do you win? And how do you take an interim belt off of someone and have it not become anyway? Yeah, I've already spent too much time dragging us into the mud on this one, but it's a weird situation to be sure.
Yeah, you know what? I don't, I've spoken to Tom Aspinall numerous times. I don't think he likes me all that much for some reason. He treats me like I'm a fanboy the fanboy interviewer. And I'm always like, Tom,
Tom.
don't make me get John Jones on you.
Yeah, Tom.
I'm just
Tom.
kidding.
Tom,
Tom,
go
listen,
read
no,
my
I'm just kidding.
tapology, Tom, please.
Yeah, no, I'm just kidding. But he is the greatest heavyweight on the planet right now. And I think he's gonna have an opportunity to prove that in his hometown on Saturday night.
Yeah, it is a very big deal. The first time in UFC history, actually, that there have been two English champions defending their belt, interim or not, on a card at the same time. So it's a big deal, not just for these individuals. It's a big deal for the market. It's huge for UK MMA, and there's so many stars on this card, up and down. But we're here to talk about the co-main event. So Tom Aspinall is, I think. I mean, you said it. I can't think of someone with a better skill set for the heavyweight division than what he brings to the table. But on the flip side of that, he will be the first to tell you that Curtis Blaydes, at least as he sees it, is the biggest challenge in the division for him. Now, I don't know if that's just him talking or if he really does feel that way, but there are certainly some real challenges that Blaydes poses. And I think it comes down to this. In a division where the margin of error is so small, you can be the best in the world. You can be the best in the world by a lot and still lose.
Well, I think that's the biggest challenge for Tom in this fight because he's to me the better fighter, but he can still lose. It does, and I think that's what makes him so dangerous is that he recognizes that. So when talking to him, he's always like, "I understand how good these other guys are and what they bring to the table. I know I'm better, but I
Mm-hmm.
do know that if I'm not, 100% or I miss an assignment, I can still lose." And I think because he recognizes that, he's always going to be pretty sharp, and he tries to make limited amount of mistakes. Now, with that being said, Curtis Blaydes is very good,
Very.
but he also makes a lot of mistakes. He makes a lot of mistakes, a lot more mistakes than Tom Aspinall. And I think that's the biggest difference in this fight is that Curtis will make those mistakes. He's been able to get away with them against other guys. But when guys make mistakes against Tom Aspinall, you don't get away with it, which is why Tom Aspinall's total fight time is not that long because
Yeah.
guys have made mistakes and he gets rid of them. And I think that Curtis is he can't afford to make mistakes in this fight.
Well, to your point, Tom Aspinall has only fought for 2 minutes and 22 seconds since the first time that he and Curtis Blade fought. And he's had two fights. So that'll tell you everything you need to know about the way that Tom Aspinall typically gets things done. When you talk about maybe lapses in fight IQ or mistakes from Curtis Blaydes, where do you see him struggling in this particular matchup with
I
Tom?
see him struggling in, well, there are some similarities in both guys. I think, Tom Aspinall was so green when he got to the UFC. Think about this, like these guys coming from the UK, um, when they first get over to the States and in the UFC, I think there's a bit of imposter syndrome that they have to get over with. And I think Tom had that in the beginning. When I first interviewed him in London, or it was in England, maybe it was Manchester or Birmingham or wherever it was, and he was just kind of like, I don't know how it's going to be for me. And he was very curious as to how he was going to perform because he just didn't know. He knew how good he was, but he didn't know how good he was.
Yeah.
So I think he had a bit of imposter syndrome, and now I think he's starting to get over that. Now, with that being said, Curtis Blaydes also has some imposter syndrome. He he wants to prove to everybody that he's this great striker, which is why I think he got knocked out by Pavlovich
Pavlovich, yeah.
because he wants to prove to everybody that he's a great striker, and he's not a bad striker,
He's a good
but
striker.
yeah, he's a pretty good striker. But I think he does it at his detriment. He doesn't do it effectively to really complement his striking as well as he should at times, because I know he has the ability to do it. I've seen him do it in fights where he really mixes his striking with his wrestling.
Yeah.
But when he wants to just strike, he just strikes, I think, at his detriment, because he wants to prove to everybody
Mhm.
that he's a good striker, and he doesn't need to do that. And I think part of that's going to get him in trouble in this fight.
Yeah, any magic that Curtis Blaydes has is in the mix. It's in the way that he is able to mix and blend between the striking and the grappling. And I mean, when you watch him operate on the ground, I mean that's definitely something special. And the way that he's able to do damage when he finds those dominant positions, phenomenal ground and pound. I mean, the guy is an A-plus grappler, but like you say, it's like when you watch his fights, you can see the moments where he is confident and comfortable, and it's really high level and really beautiful to see. And his striking looks polished, and his footwork looks good, and he's finding angles, and his shot selection is good, and he's level changing, he's feinting. I mean, he's doing all of the things. And then there are moments where he seems a little bit uncomfortable and less confident, and it looks disjointed and separate. Like, now I'm striking, now I'm grappling. And when he does that, that's where he gets in trouble. Hey guys, this video is powered by Bet365 as part of their sponsorship of the UFC in the UK and Ireland. So if you're in the UK and Ireland and join Bet365, if you can use code Sanko when you sign up and let them know that I sent you, I would be super grateful.
Well, here's what I think the biggest difference in this fight is going to be is in the current landscape of MMA right now, you have kind of two different type of fighters. You have the fighter who is in the bigger gyms and have like good partners and they're scrapping every day and they're solid. And there was a time where those guys excelled. And then you have these other guys that are in the smaller gyms that have really high level coaching that is really taking care of their fighters. And right now, in today's landscape of MMA, I'm always leaning towards the guy from the smaller gym who has more specified coaching.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Tom has that. And I think the fact that his father is his coach, who's been with him since the beginning, and he has this relationship with his father, and he just seems so disciplined and so well coached that in moments where it's kind of chaotic, they excel better because they know what to do. They're not guessing because they were in a big room and trying to figure it out. And I think he's gonna have the advantage over Curtis Blaydes in every situation where that comes down to.
You talk about Andy, his dad. I am such a huge fan of Tom's dad. Like I just love that guy. When we went to London last year. When I say we, I mean me and my family, because I was working the desk in London. And because Tom is a heavyweight, obviously he wasn't, watching what he had to eat all week. So he would be at breakfast in the morning. And so we'd have like a little interaction, whatever. Long story endless, my husband and my son got quite a bit of chances to talk to Tom and a lot more chances to talk to his dad. Such a nice guy. And it's fascinating, partly because his dad is such a tiny guy. I was like, is he adopted? I'm sorry. I didn't realize Tom was adopted because his dad is what, 5'7", 5'8",
Yeah, he's tiny.
and
Well,
slender.
and so Mokaev, the Muhammad Mokaev
Yeah.
was like, he had an interview recently, was like, yo, Tom Aspinall's dad, he would give top 15ers problems. Like he can still grapple, like his ground and pound, his pressure is tremendous. And I asked Tom about that, and I was like, yo, man, hurry up, pop and give guys,
Yeah.
problems. He was like, well, he's 60 years old, so I think, you're just kind of making this up. And I was like, dude, you're blowing me off here. But I'm trying to give your pop some props.
Yeah.
But he wasn't having it. He wasn't having it.
Well, no, I've heard he's very good. He was one of the UK's first black belts, and he told me that Tom, because we were kind of joking around. My husband was the one who said it. He's like, "Is he adopted?" And Andy's like, "No, he's not adopted." But Tom grew. I want to say it was like 8 inches in a little bit over a year when he was around like 14 or 15 years old, to the point where it was like medically dangerous. He was in the hospital in incredible pain because his bones were growing so quickly and his muscles were growing so quickly. Like it was a legitimate hardship for him how big he got, how quickly he got. But it's an interesting storyline for his MMA game because when he started out and he was teaching jujitsu, he was a small guy. Tom was. And he spent many, many years in this like small person's body and got to be a fairly high ranking belt in a small person's body. And then all of a sudden went from like an average sized guy to this absolutely gargantuan human being and still kind of thought and operated like a small guy.
And that's why I think Curtis Blaydes is going to have a problem even if he gets him down. Because we haven't, first off, we haven't seen Tom Aspinall on his back. And what you're saying makes perfect sense. When you're a smaller guy, you tend to have a very agile, flexible guard.
Mm-hmm.
You do. And we haven't seen Tom on his back. I can only assume that as he's still a young man, that as he's developed his game, his bottom game is still intact.
Yeah.
And I think that could give Curtis problems in terms of like his mobility off of his back and being able to move and scramble and throw up submissions and then be able to get back to his feet. That Curtis is going to have some problems even if he gets to takedown. But then let's also not underestimate Tom Aspinall's ability to take people down. I mean, when he took Volkov down off that right hand, he slipped the punch and then whoop hit the
Yeah.
shot. I mean, it looked picture perfect.
It did. I've long heard from many people around him and from watching what little fight footage there is of Tom outside of the UFC. But guys that have spent time at the gym have always said, you think he's a good striker. You know, you think he's fast on the feet. You should see him operate on the ground. Like his jujitsu game is absolutely nasty. And he's been a black belt for a very, very long time and was teaching jujitsu for, a decade before he even started fighting. So I'm kind of excited to see if we saw a little bit of that in the Volkov fight. Beautiful straight armbar. I mean, it's pretty clear he knew what he was doing down there, but I kind of hope we get to see a little bit more of it because I love the grappling. But
But consider that, like Volkov to me is one of the better, like better MMA style grapplers for heavyweight, right? When you think about it, like he seems competent off of his back, and he's been able to handle himself pretty well against everybody else except for Tom Aspinall. Like, I mean, he got straight arm locked by Tom. Like that's a submission that you don't see often. Like that's
no,
like black belt to white belt type submission. Like
yeah,
you don't see that. Like
he got
guys don't go
manhandled.
for that.
Yeah,
And he did that to Volkov. I mean, that's a scary thing right there.
yep. And on the flip side, though, people may not be lit on fire by the name Curtis Blaydes, but when you look at his resume, you have to respect what this man has done in the heavyweight division because the reality is he has only lost to Ngannou, Lewis, and Pavlovich, who are by far, other than Tom Aspinall, the scariest dudes that this division has seen in a very long time. And he has wins over guys like JDS, a very, very, a great boxer. He's got, I'm forgetting all of them right now, but he's got a really sound resume. He has been operating at the top of this heavyweight division for a very long time and has only lost to the cream of the crop. So I hope that people are putting the due respect on Curtis Blaydes' name coming into this fight.
Well, and see, and that's that's evidence for what I was saying earlier about him making mistakes. When he fights other guys, he's A plus. I mean, what he did to Overeem was disrespectful. I mean, he
Yes.
busted him open.
Yes.
What he does to what he did to JDS, disrespectful.
Disrespect.
TKO'd him on his feet. But when he fights the top guys that have this certain level of danger about him, and he makes a mistake, he pays the price severely for it. Now, Tom Aspinall may not have that scary factor to him the same way that Francis does, where you look at him and just like, oh no. But his skill set makes up for it. That he can't really afford to make mistakes in many different places. He can't make mistakes on his feet. He can't make mistakes in the wrestling department. And I'm willing to bet he's not going to be able to make a mistake on the ground from any position, top or bottom. Curtis Blaydes, to me, has his work cut out for him. Can he do it? Absolutely, but he's got his work cut out for him.
Do you take anything from the 15 seconds in the first fight in terms of like the way that Curtis is going to try to approach this? He was pressuring him pretty significantly.
So I went back and watched that, and I'm going to tell you the truth. Tom Aspinall dodged a bullet in that fight.
I know.
Here's why Tom Aspinall dodged a bullet in that fight, because he came out reckless.
Chin up.
Chin up, running and throwing kicks. He almost looked like it almost looked as though since that fight he looked back and was like, what and what was I doing?
Yeah.
That's not how you fight. He might have lost that night. I mean, he did lose, but he might have
We know what you mean.
really, he
Yeah.
might have gotten beaten that night
Yeah.
because he was not fighting. He didn't come out good. He came out, he came out reckless and wild and
Green.
irresponsible.
Yeah.
I think the fact that he did that and now he gets the rematch, he's going to go back and go, I got to have more respect for this
Yeah.
guy. And I'm going to fight him for real. I'm going to fight him like a man. And I think that's going to be bad for Curtis. I think
Well,
that
and
that's what you take away from this.
he has said as well that he is, literally a different person, different fighter after that fight. Now, a lot of that has to do with the injury and psychologically all that he went through in terms of coming back from such a, devastating knee injury that it was just some freak thing that happened in the fight. But I think, like you said, he gained a new respect for Curtis and for the fight game in general, and it changed how he trained. After that fight was when he kind of started realizing, like, okay, I can't just be the biggest, baddest guy in the room all the time. I have to force myself to train, at least spar, exclusively with heavyweights. Because before he was at this gym where there just weren't a lot of big bodies. And now he's created a situation where he's dealing with guys that are even bigger than he is, wrestlers, Dutch kickboxers, world's strongest man, like huge dudes that are making him work and really, challenging him on a daily basis in the way that he wasn't before. So
Yeah, I think he's got a lot of good guys in his camp. I see Phil DeFries, or however you want to say his
crazy.
last name, but
Yeah.
but um, he's been one of the premier heavyweights outside of the UFC for a very long time. And I think that's a good asset to have for Tom Aspinall to kind of keep him in check.
Yep, it's a big deal in terms of like I think your own conversation in your head too. Like you can when you're not training with true measuring sticks, it's easy to go one way or the other in terms of making excuses. I did it all the time. Like when I was training with guys, I think we've talked about this before, and I'd get my ass kicked. It's like, well, yeah, they're guys. Of course they're going to kick my ass. And you know, if you train with people that are smaller than you, you can start to have a false sense of confidence. It's really only when you train with people that are at your size and at your level, like they would be in a fight, where you get to really self assess.
Yeah, that's a very difficult thing to navigate through, is that assessment. And that to me is why, if Tom Aspinall is with his camp and they're dedicating the majority of their time to make sure Tom's getting what he needs, like his father and everybody else is doing that, that is such an advantage over guys that just show up to big gyms and just
Yep.
kind of hope it works out.
Yep. Big deal. Very, very big deal. I'm excited about this fight. How do you think it's going to go down?
You know, I think Tom puts it on him, honestly. I really do. And everybody, as Alan Joe Barron and RJ Clifford, they think I hate Curtis Blaydes. I don't hate Curtis. I think Curtis Blaydes is a dog. I think I love his attitude towards fighting. Like he's got this thing about him. You could tell he's a fighter and he's fighting for something. But skills are skills. And I know, not only from the eye test, but from all I know about fighting, that Tom Aspinall is the better fighter. And if they fight 100 times, Tom wins almost all of them.
Hmm.
But Saturday night is just one time. But to me, Tom wins. I think he's the better fighter, and I think he has his way with him. I think he makes it look easy too.
Can you imagine the crowd? Were you there in London when they were doing the Tommy Aspinall, Tommy Aspinall, and like the
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
O2 arena was
Hmm.
shaking and rocking? Those fans love them some Tom Aspinall. It's wild.
Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. I mean, when you think about the whole night between them and Patty and
Patty.
Molly, and it's just gonna kind of crescendo into this explosion at the end. And I'm actually glad I'm not gonna be there.
I know you and I are going to be hanging out in Bristol,
Yeah,
Connecticut.
we'll be in Bristol, Connecticut, actually working the show, but I'm okay with not being there this time. I've seen it. I've done it a few
Yep.
times. I don't need to do it every time. I'm okay with not being in Manchester this time.
Yeah, I don't love that time difference. That's a rough one for me. So I'm with you. I'm excited to be in Bristol. I'm excited to work alongside you, and I believe Chael Sonnen as well. So that should be a fun crew. One last question for you. I've seen you do these ESPN shows many times on the road. We've done fight night desk together. I've never worked an ESPN desk with you. Are you dressing up when we're in studio, or is that just an on the road thing?
And in terms of dressing up, you mean
I
like
mean, just add a little something a little spicy, something a
I mean, I'm not going. I'm not.
little
I don't
extra
go too.
salt.
I don't go too spicy there. But I mean, I gotta be clean though. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be clean. Let's
I
get
mean,
this.
I've seen
Let's
you
get it
show up
straight.
looking like a handsome Paddington Bear for
No,
London.
I was nah. I'm not gonna do it this time. Like if I was in London, I would have. Like last time, I had the double breasted. I was gonna wear the top hat, but I needed to put the headphones on.
Yeah.
But this time I'm gonna be clean, but I'm
Okay.
not going too crazy. So you don't have
Okay.
to try to you don't have to show up like Bridgerton, all right? You don't have to be out there.
Can
You
you
don't
imagine?
you know what I'm saying? You don't have to be out there like like
Glenn would be
Queen
like,
Charlotte,
"Who
all
let
right?
these two in here?" And Chael, meanwhile, is just black head to toe, and we're over there. That would be phenomenal.
Yeah. So you can be cool. You can wear what you need to wear.
Okay, perfect. That's why I was asking because we
Yeah.
gotta figure out the fit. I look forward to working with you, Dean, as always, and thank you so much for your time tonight. We appreciate it very much, guys. If you can, please click like, click subscribe. I've got a code now for Bet365. It's code Sanko. Pretty easy to remember. We appreciate your views so much. We appreciate the subscriptions. We have a video on the main event as well, so check that one out. And thank you very much, guys. We will see you there.